Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about my top 5 high-end foundations. I am also going to have a top 5 drugstore foundations, which you'll see coming in the next week or so. But I wanted to kind of zero in and just talk about high-end foundations today because I felt like if I tried to encompass too much, this was going to be like an hour-long video. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to focus on these high-end foundations. There are so many good high-end foundations, and there are also so many good drugstore foundations. So we'll focus on the high-end today. And like I said, that drugstore foundation video is coming. Now, this was really hard for me to kind of break it down into my top 5. But basically, if you watched my videos, you know that I have combination oily skin, and foundation wise, I tend to like to stick in the medium coverage, medium buildable. So that definitely does narrow it down, although I do have a little bit of a variety today. And that also kind of leads me to the beginning of this video, in that I am cheating a little bit. I have my top 5, but I also have 2 honorable mentions because I felt like I just couldn't not include them, even though they kind of don't tick those boxes. With that being said, let's have a little fun. So my first honorable mention is a tinted moisturizer. Like I said, generally I reach for kind of medium buildable foundations, but I love a good tinted moisturizer or tinted hydrator. So I definitely wanted to include this one. This is from Tarte. This is their Maracuja tinted hydrator. I am in the shade 13N or Fair Light Neutral. This is $29. It comes in 20 different shades. It also comes in a mini version. This is what the mini looks like. This is $15. And this is a half a fluid ounce, where the full size is 1 fluid ounce. What I love about this tinted moisturizer is that it has a very natural finish. Now, they call it a hydrator. This has hyaluronic acid in it. It also has turmeric root extract, which kind of helps with redness. It decreases the appearance of redness. And then it also has maracuja oil, which is also very hydrating. And it's, rich in essential fatty acids. Again, very hydrating. But what I love about this tinted moisturizer is it's not super shiny. And I have found, the reason why I wanted to include this is I found that there's been a lot of tinted hydrators or tinted moisturizers that have come onto the market, especially in the last year or so. And I find that I end up comparing all of those to this one. And this is how I know that this is my favorite, because at the end of the day, every time I try a new one, I'm like, how does this compare to the Tarte Maracuja tinted hydrator? And I find that even though there are other tinted moisturizers that I like, I always keep coming back to this one. And I think the biggest reason is it is hydrating. It has a sheer, kind of natural finish, and it's not super shiny. And I find that a lot of tinted moisturizers just end up being almost too glowy for me. Whether or not that's because they have SPF, or many of them have SPF in them or not, I'm not sure. This one does not have SPF, so that's something to keep in mind. That's not a concern for me, but for some people it is. But I would highly recommend this if you have combination oily skin, if a lot of tinted moisturizers make you feel really greasy and shiny, this is a good one to try. Again. So my second honorable mention, again, it's a product that doesn't necessarily fit into that criteria that I was originally looking at. This is a liquid to powder foundation, and this is from Bobbi Brown. This is her Skin Long Wear Fluid Powder Foundation. This is broad spectrum 20. This also has sheer to light coverage. It is 1.4 fluid ounces for $40, and it comes in 28 shades. This gives you this kind of soft matte look, but it is very, like I said, light, sheer to light coverage. When I first tried this product, I hated it. And I think it's because if you're not used to working with fluid to powder foundations, it can be a little tricky to work with. When I first used it, I used too much. And when it dried down, and it dries down very quickly into this kind of powdery finish, it was very powdery. It was very cakey, and it just did not look good. So I tried it a few more times because I'm like, God, everyone loves this. So is this operator error or what? And what I realized is that's exactly what it was. It was operator error. This is meant to be sheer coverage. It's meant to be light. So you really just want to use a small amount. You can use your fingers, you can use a brush, you can use a sponge, but the key is to put it on lightly. And it does dry down quickly, and it gives this very nice, natural finish that's not super powdery if you don't overdo it. I have come to love this foundation. I especially love it because as it fades throughout the day, it fades gracefully. We have all had those foundations that hold up, and then I don't know what happens, you know, the clock turns midnight and it just melts off your face or breaks up and it looks terrible. This just kind of fades gracefully. So even though you've been wearing it for 10 hours, you still look good. All right, now that we've gotten those honorable mentions out of the way, let's get into my top 5 high-end foundations. So number 5 is one of 2 more luminous or radiant foundations in this list. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that again, with my oily combination skin, even though I love the look of luminous foundations, many of them look great for an hour and then turn into just an oil slick, grease ball look all over my face, and it's just so disappointing and it makes me so sad. But over the years, I have found a few that are luminous foundations that can still work for my combination oily skin. And this is the first one of 2 in this list. And this is from Laura Mercier. This is her Flawless Lumiere Radiance Perfecting Foundation. I am in the shade 1C1 Shell. This is on the market for $48 for 1 fluid ounce. It comes in 30 shades. This is a medium to full coverage. I have never gotten full coverage out of this. I would definitely call this a strong medium coverage. It is a luminous or radiant finish, but again, this is one of the few products that I've been able to get away with and have a beautiful glow without becoming a disco ball shortly after. So I'm a big fan of this foundation. Now it is thicker than a lot of the foundations you're going to see in this list, so I definitely have to use a little bit more. Most foundations I'm using like a half pump or a pump at the very most. In this one, I tend to have to use 1.5 to 2 pumps just because it's a thicker consistency, and for it to go on the way I want it to, I usually have to do that. So it is a little different than some of the others you're going to see. But what I love about this foundation is, like I said, I can get that luminous look without becoming a grease ball, and this does not seep into fine lines and wrinkles. It doesn't accentuate my age-related things that I'm trying to hide. So I'm a big fan of this. My number 4 foundation is from Chanel. It's their Ultra Latent Velvet. I apologize, I don't speak French, so I'm sure I just butchered how to really say that the French way. This is a sheer to light, very natural cover foundation. It is $50 for 1 fluid ounce. I am in the shade BR12. I love the feel of this foundation. If you say, you know what, I want my foundation to feel like skin, to look like skin, this is a really, really good option. And they call it velvet for a reason. The finish of this is just so velvety smooth. It makes your skin look and feel so beautiful. It gives you this very natural, you know, I wouldn't call it matte and I wouldn't call it luminous. It's this very natural skin-like look to it. It does not seep into fine lines and wrinkles. This is definitely a foundation, a really good, you know, light up to maybe medium. I definitely still call it light foundation for aged skin. I definitely think if you're over 40, this is definitely a foundation you should check out. My number 3 foundation is the second of the luminous foundations I have in this list. And this is from Estee Lauder. This is the Futurist Hydra Rescue Moisturizing Foundation. This is SPF 45. It is $45 for 1.2 fluid ounces. And I am in the shade Fresco, which is 2C3. It comes in 28 shades. This is considered a medium coverage foundation. This has the most beautiful luminous finish. Now, it can get a little greasy on me. I do have to be smart about it. I have to use a mattifying primer, which frankly, 9 times out of 10, I'm using mattifying primers anyway, at least in my T-zone. So not that big of a deal for me. But when you prep your skin the right way, even if you've got, more oily skin, I think this is a foundation that you can use. I have heard wonderful things as well for women with dry skin using this foundation. Now, I have a confession to make. There is another Estee Lauder foundation that I absolutely love, and that is the classic Estee Lauder Double Wear, but it is not in this list. And I'll get to that because I have a different matte foundation that kind of knocked it out of its place. I still love Double Wear. I'm still a big fan of it. But I found in the last year or two that spot has been kind of knocked out by a few other foundations as well. So if I had to pick an Estee Lauder foundation, this is the one I would pick. Now, it does have a slight fragrance to it. I've talked a lot in my channel about I don't like fragrance in my skincare or the majority of my skincare. I'm not as worked up about it in my makeup, but if you are very sensitive to fragrance, this definitely has this kind of signature Estee Lauder kind of cucumbery, light cucumber scent. And if you're anti-fragrance, it's gonna bug you. But it does dissipate quickly. It's not something that's gonna stay with you for a long period of time. But I definitely don't wanna imply that, oh yeah, it's not gonna bother you. There are absolutely people who are really sensitive to fragrance. And if you're really sensitive, this may not be the right choice for you. All right, number 2. Now, I had a really hard time deciding between what foundation was going to be my number 2 and what foundation was going to be my number 1. And I kept flipping them back and forth and back and forth. And the reason is because I kept asking myself, do I want my number 1 foundation to be what I use every day? What's my workhorse? What do I use every day when I'm not thinking, when I'm not trying things out, things that I know are just going to be tried and true? What do I reach for? Or do I want my number 1 to be what I reach for when I want to look flawless? And I decided on that. I decided that my number 2 was going to be my workhorse in this list. And that's from Dior. This is their Backstage Face and Body Foundation. This is my workhorse. I love this foundation. It is $40 for 1.6 fluid ounces. It comes in 40 shades, so it has a really nice, impressive shade range. I am in the shade 1 Neutral. It has a medium buildable coverage. I don't think I've ever gotten to full on this foundation, but that's okay. That's not what I needed to do. I want a nice medium coverage, and I want it to look natural and beautiful on my skin. And this does that. This is sweat resistant. It lasts for a really, really long time. And it just gives that really nice, natural, skin-like finish. If you say to me, I want to wear foundation, but I don't want to look like I'm wearing foundation, but I still want some coverage, this is what I'm going to tell you to reach for. This Dior Backstage Face and Body. And then finally, we have my number 1 foundation. Now, like I said before, I had a really tough time between my Dior Face and Body, which is like my everyday, what I reach for when I'm not trying things out, when I'm not looking for a very specific look. But this foundation is my holy grail. If you are going somewhere and you want to look good, you want your skin to look flawless, I'm going to a wedding, I'm going out with my husband, I'm going out with my girlfriends, this is what I'm going to reach for. This is from NARS. This is their Soft Matte Complete Foundation. I love this foundation. Now, I love it because of my oily skin, I tend to reach for more natural or matte finishes. However, whenever I got recommendations for matte foundations, a lot of them were just so matte. In fact, they just made my face look really flat, or it looked like I was wearing a mask. And I don't want to look like I'm wearing a mask. I think it's a big misnomer. A lot of women are told, well, when you get older, you need to cover more, so you should be wearing more full coverage foundation. No. In fact, for a lot of women, you should be wearing more light or medium foundations, because when you have fine lines and wrinkles, it's actually hard to find foundations that don't seep into those and actually make you look older. Now this, for me, this is the exception. This is a beautiful soft matte, so it doesn't make me look like I'm wearing a mask. It does not make my face look flat. It has a beautiful natural finish, but man, does my skin look flawless. This is the type of foundation where you like walk around the house and like look at yourself in the mirror and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I like that. And I'm a big fan of this foundation. It is $40 for 1.5 ounces. It comes in 44 shades. So again, a very big shade range, which is great. Yay for NARS for that. I am in the shade L2, which is Mont Blanc. And this is supposed to provide a 16-hour wear. There is microalgae in this and hyaluronic acid. The idea is the microalgae helps kind of absorb excess sebum. So it kind of keeps you matte, keeps you from having to blot if you're really oily, which whether or not it's the microalgae doing the work, I don't know, but this definitely does keep me not greasy throughout the day. So that's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed learning about my top 5 foundations. Now I'd love to hear from you. Are any of your favorites on this list? Did I forget one, or is it a travesty that I didn't include ones that you love? I would love to hear what you have to say, and I would love your recommendations as well. I am always on the hunt for good foundations. I love trying out foundations. So if you have any recommendations, I would love to hear them. And if you have any questions about foundations that maybe I didn't mention, I'd be happy to answer them if I've tried them. So if you like this content, I hope you stick around. I hope you like this video. And if you like this content, I hope you subscribe below. And I hope to see you again in my next video. Bye, you guys.